What is up, guys? It is the Scarlet Duelist back again with yet another deck profile that I'm confident calling pretty good. This is going to be my take on pure Thunder Dragons, and it's really if you are an experienced Thunder Dragon player. I've got some quirky techs in here, not very many, so this isn't really veering off very much from the regular way that Thunder Dragons play. So if you're not interested after hearing that, I just figured I'd be up front right away in the beginning of the video so that you know if this is for you or not. Those of you that are still kind of trying to figure out how to get into Thunder Dragons, this video is more for you because it's got a different-ish take. It's not veering off I didn't find a brand new way that Thunder Dragons can be played. They kind of play the same way overall, even when you look at variations on the pure version. They all have similar end goals, but if you're fairly new or just looking for kind of some quirky text to throw into your Thunder Dragons, this video might be more for you. So let's get started right away. We've got obviously the OG Thunder Dragon right here. And the only thing I'll say about this is I think something that people don't know, or at least some people who are relatively new to Thunder Dragons that they don't know, is that when you discard this to search, most of the time you're doing that because you want to make your Colossus plays live, because you can't make it until you activate an effect in hand. And personally, I would recommend only searching one, because then if you do, later on in the game and you have a Titan still live on your turn, you've got a free pop, so you can take care of some problem cards. Now, if you have no other option, search both, but I don't know. I had someone ask me mid-duel, well, why didn't you go ahead and search both? That's actually why. You want to still sometimes keep this live. You don't want to use all your resources right away. Next, we've got Thunder Dragon Matrix. This searches itself when it leaves the field or is banished, to kind of keep reloading. Because of its first effect. So you really want to use that second effect on your own turn, and then the first effect is that you can discard it as a quick effect to increase the attack permanently of one of your Thunder Dragon monsters, or I guess just any Thunder monster, but most of the time you're going to use it on a Thunder Dragon because that's what you're playing. And then what that does is it triggers a Titan, which is a non-targeting destroy, so you get a non-targeting pop. Now, the only thing is your opponent can chain block that. They can respond to the activation of Matrix, but if they don't, you have the opportunity to activate your Titan and pop something. And that is not once per turn, so if you can keep some other plays moving, you can get that done. By the way, if you do hear some background noise, that is my washer and dryer operating. You now know and have discovered that I wash my clothes. If it's bothering you, sorry, but also I don't care that much. My voice is the loudest sound that you hear, and I'm sure that's fine. We're going for pretty good, not great, all right? Pretty good is just fine. I don't want you guys to be spoiled. I'm just kidding. Then we've got Thunder Dragon Roar. We've got some camera shake there. I do apologize for that because that makes it harder to see the cards. My dog likes to come under the table whenever I'm making a video and make life harder for me. So that's just how it is. Roar lets you special summon from deck if it leaves the field or it is banished, which is really nice. This is usually the play you're going for when you use things like Battery Man or Aloof Lupine. You're probably going to try to get this guy banished. And the only thing that you need to do if you do send this to the grave off of Battery Man is use a Hawk to bring it back and then use it as material, and then you get that special summon and so on. Your combos keep going. And usually when you get that special summon, I tend to bring out this guy or a Matrix, depending on what my plans are, and depending on whether or not I went second or first. Excuse me, I've been sick for a little while. Dark is really good because it searches any other Thunder card. This is usually what I use to search either basically a bullet in order to pop on my opponent's turn, or I use it to search for Thunder Dragon Fusion or Duo. So those are the things that you don't run as much of and that you might need, because Thunder Dragon Fusion and Duo can sometimes save your turn if you got interrupted a little bit. So keep that in mind. Now, what sucks is if you draw this, this is not the one that you want to see in hand very much. You can operate it as a quick effect to then trigger your Titan to pop, but that's just not ideal because you don't get its full utility out of that. If you disagree, that's fine, but that's been my experience. Next, we've got Thunder Dragon Hawk. This is really good to open with if you also open with a way to banish or send a card to grave, because this allows you to recycle those resources and keep moving with your plays. I don't tend to use its reshuffle effect very often, but on the off chance that you use that and you just need a hand reset, Thunder Dragon Hawk does that, which is really, really nice. So really love this card. It's got a lot of utility, and it keeps your graveyard diverse by not having all these dark monsters there, because I think the last two I showed you were dark, and you use them a lot, so they end up there often. Then we've got one Thunder Dragon Duo. I've seen some people run it at 2. Really, that's up to your discretion. I've got some other quirky techs in here that I run because I like them. But if you prefer Duo at 2, that also makes a lot of sense, because sometimes you can use its plays for lots of things like saving your turn or just increasing the longevity of the duel by staying in the game a little more. Then we've got 3 Battery Man Solar. So Battery Man Solar is debated as good or bad between the others, and I'm going to lay these here too because I also do 2 Aloof Lupine. The thing about these is I only have these as my normal summons because they're really good play starters most of the time, but sometimes you see this and you go nuts, and other times you see this and you straight up, it sucks. Other times, the same thing with Aloof Lupine. So it's guys, this game does have a sense of RNG to it, where it's just random. There is no, I think, choice that's better than the other. The reason that I have 2 of Aloof rather than 3 is because it's not a Thunder monster. So it does make playing around that a little tougher. So that's why I don't have it at 3. Otherwise, if this was a Thunder monster, I would probably run it at 3 also, because it's a very good play starter, but so is Solar. If you see Solar and Hawk, or Solar and Dimension Shifter, which is the spice coming up next, you've gone the nuts. But if you see Aloof with a Dragon Roar, you've also gone the nuts. So it's one of those things that, it depends on what you also open with. It's not like one is inherently better or worse than the other. So I'm getting tired of that debate among, Thunder Dragon players. I think sometimes you see one of them and it sucks, and sometimes you see one of them and it's awesome. That's just like how Yu-Gi-Oh goes sometimes. You don't always draw a perfect hand. Then we've got 3 Dimension Shifter. So this really helps with going second or first, because you can play through it going first and your opponent still has to deal with its effects. And then also, if you're going second, it's another way to end your opponent's turn if they're graveyard reliant, and most of the meta is nowadays, which is great. It also affects pendulums, by the way. So pendulums, rather than going to the extra deck face up, will be banished. So that's something that's really, really good against the majority of even rogue matches. So I would keep it in the main personally, and if you don't need it, you end up using it for a lure fodder or discarding it off of something else. So it's not that bad to have in the main deck. Some people have just been totally against it, which I disagree with. Now, some people think that this is like what saves the deck. I disagree with that. It's pretty good. So I'd run it. Then we've got 2 Denko Sekka. Yeah, I main this ish. The reason for that is because on the I don't really set. I have some traps in the deck, but that's it. I have 3. So with this, if I don't end up needing to use it for what it's used for, it's just a normal summon. Maybe if I didn't get one, that I can turn into a Colossus, or just banish from my hand to make a Titan. So it's got utility also. But also, if you end up having to go second, because you don't win every single die roll, by the way. I don't know why people don't understand this concept. If you do end up going second, you also have its other utility against decks that, we've got so much back row right now. So that shuts it down instantly. Unless they're going to negate the summon, they cannot use that back row anymore, which is really nice. And finally, my last spicy tech, 1 copy of Thunderclap Monk. This guy is incredible. So you can either send this to the grave with a Solar and actually get some utility out of that card. Maybe if you didn't want to send anything else, you've got other plays in hand, and you make a Summer Summoner, then end on maybe 2 Colossus or something like that, or just 1. Maybe you didn't open ideally. This can kind of save that, because Summer Summoner brings this card back, and once this card is brought back from the graveyard, once it's been special summoned, it becomes a free monster negate. And every time it leaves the field, it allows you to special summon a Thunder monster from your hand. So even if you just use this as a Colossus material or a Link material, you get to keep moving forward with your plays because it allows you to special summon a Thunder monster from your hand, which is awesome. I wouldn't run more than one just because you kind of just want to see it whenever you want to see it. It's cool when you see it, but you don't have to. It's not something you need to, but it's fun. I really enjoy it. Now this, probably for those of you that are like, nah, on this one, that's probably where you're going to throw in your second duo, but I really like it personally. Finally, I've got the spells. 3 copies of Instant Fusion. This is a hand saver mostly, but going second if you want to bring out the Restrict, sometimes you can do that too. But I like using this to make Kaminari attack, and then going from there, it's a hand saver, like I said. Then we've got 2 Thunder Dragon Fusion. I would not recommend going up to 3, because this is one of those cards that you want to see when you want to see it, and it's searchable. So it does help fix your boards in your hand, but it sucks when you draw into it or draw it in your opening hand because it's something that you would just prefer to search. So that's why it's at 2. If you accidentally open on it, it's not the worst thing, but you don't want to keep drawing it on your, when you're top decking. Then finally, we've got 3 Pot of Greed. Whoops, sorry, looked at that wrong. That's Allure of Darkness. That was a terrible joke. Don't even pretend. I know that you did this with your nose. You made this noise. Probably can't even hear that, but you did that nose sound, and then you rolled your eyes. So Allure of Darkness is Pot of Greed in this deck. And then you plus off of banishing either a Dark or a Roar, which is awesome. So that's really cool. However, if you don't, you can also banish those extra dimension shifters if you accidentally draw one or whatever, or the Aloof Lupine that you don't need anymore, whatever. So Allure is incredibly live in this deck. And what's cool is you get a banish after you draw. So even if you're like, oh, I've got Aloof Lupine, but I'm going to activate Allure. And then if you draw the Roar, banish the Roar, because then you get a special summon. Then we've got Gold Sark, just for the same reason I just described. It's good to get those effects off of the banish right away. It's amazing. And this was kind of my 39th card. Now I'm in spells, so I've got 3 more after this. I've got Pot of Desires. This could kind of be whatever you want it to be. I put it in there because it's nice to unbrick my hand if I do happen to draw a crappy hand. I like to maximize consistency. And then I've got 3 Paleozoic Dynamiscus. So the one thing this deck does well is make its monster-themed board. You're not going to have a struggle with that. However, it does lack the ability to disrupt your opponent on a consistent basis. You might get one single pop from Titan, which is good, but then you also want to have some further disruption. And what's cool about Dynamiscus is you can activate it on your opponent's turn, yes, of course, but it allows you to fuel your graveyard to further protect your Thunder Dragons. So you can discard a card that you don't need and potentially get a banish off of it. And then you also get to banish one of your opponent's cards. So that's really, really nice. And I mean, you don't tend to use it, but on the off chance that your opponent activates a trap, this comes back and defends you a little bit. So yeah, you need some more disruption on your opponent's turn, some more reactive disruption. You've got the Floodgate going with Colossus. And the protection is really good, but you've got things like Orcust that are running around that make it really hard to play, and they don't care what you do, so you want to be sure to disrupt them too. So that's the main deck, and we'll go into the extra and a little bit of the side. For the extra, we'll start out with, I guess, what's there. We've got Gustav Max. This is your OTK machine. So if you're going second and you've managed to simplify the game state, make 2 Titan, attack for 32? Yeah, 3,200. Then you overlay them in main phase 2 with this guy, and then that's game if you can activate its effect and resolve it. So that's why I have this. It's nice to quicken some game states, or not game states, quicken some games and matches, especially when we're in a time when competitive play has pretty bogus time rules. So that's really nice to have. Then we've got Thousand Eyes for going second. You don't make it often, but it's there. We've got 1 Kaminari attack because it's a hand saver. And you get to recycle this off of Thunder Dragon Fusion. So there's potential that if you draw into another instant fusion, you can end up using it again. Then we've got 3 Thunder Dragon Colossus. You know what this does. This is the thing that makes it hard for your opponent to play inherently. And a lot of people are whining about this card still. I've got a lot of thoughts on that, but I'll cover it in another video. But just quickly, I don't think this card is that broken anymore. I think it's been pretty crept. There are so many ways to deal with it. I think people are just annoyed at the fact that they have to deal with it and have to think about ways to side for Thunder Dragons just because they've been around for a long time. So I think that's something to consider. If that's you, relax a little bit about Colossus. It's not that bad. You just have to find a way to deal with it. And there are so many you know? So I'm just saying. Then we've got 2 Titan. Looking into possibly upping this to 3 just to conserve resources. But so far in deck building and in duels, I haven't needed 3 in order to win. But it would be nice probably to have this at 3. I'll show you what I would take out. It's just in here because when I was new to the deck, I bought it and I built it the way I thought it was supposed to be built, and I was a little bit wrong there. But the deck functions. This is a really good extra deck still, and I still win games with it. Then we've got Linkuriboh, just because on the off chance that you did brick a little bit, you can turn that matrix into a Linkuriboh, search off, and hopefully get going in another way. Then we've got 2 Summoner. This is a really good card because on your opponent's turn, you can bring back something as long as it was summoned correctly and can be special summoned that way. So that's why I have the Thunderclap Monk. Then you can also, if you're not going to use it for that purpose, tribute this off into your 3rd Colossus, which is really nice. If you like ending on a triple Colossus board, I tend to not overextend into 3 personally because I don't like getting Nibiru'd and losing all my resources. But if you're wanting to flex a little bit, you can do that. And then finally we have Witch's Apprentice, because when you use that aloof lupine effect, you occasionally do end up with like a wonky way to try and link off. So you got to have a way to make a link monster. You could use this, Witch, or you can use Lanfarinkus, but sometimes you can't use some summoner to get your plays going like you'd like to. That was a lot of the word like in one sentence. Sorry about that. Then finally, we've got, this is the card that I would probably take out, but I bought it because it was in a lot of other decks I saw when I was new to the deck. Thunder Dragon Thunderstorm Mech. It doesn't really do anything, to be honest. I mean, it can mimic one of your Thunder Dragon monster's effects in the graveyard that's banished, but I don't quite understand how you would utilize it after that. I guess you tribute it off into a Colossus and then it does that thing. But I mean, you're never going to do that. Like, I've never done that ever. So I would probably take this out and put in a 3rd Titan, personally. But it's here. If you're just kind of getting the basics of the deck and you want to save a little bit of money, do this. But if not, if you want to be a little more competitive, take this out, put in the 3rd Titan. Finally, I've got my Boral brothers here. Borreload and Boral Sword. I don't make them often because I don't really need to, but they are there as options if I want them. And again, you can substitute these for lots of other things for consistency's sake and resource sake. If you want to take out one or the other and just go that way, that's also something you can do. But that is the extra deck. And finally, we are into the side deck. We are making great time. What are we at? 17? Sweet. 1730. All right. Yeah, that's my field center. So for going second, I've got 2 Twin, 2 Effect, and 2 Ash. I don't have these in the main because you're usually going to try to go first. But right now my build is in a place where it could go second and do fine. But on the off chance that you really need to slow your opponent down, these are what these are for, and this takes care of back row with the Twin Twisters. Then I've got for my Striker, which is changing because I don't know how competitive it is, but still against those pendulum decks, I've got my anti-spell everything. So I've got 3 anti-spell and Imperial Order. This can probably change into something else, but that's what I've had from the last competitive event I was at. Then I also have 2 Summon Limit, which is really good because I don't have to summon more than twice to build a board that's hard for my opponent to deal with. And even if I did, if I already made my board and then I flip this on my opponent's turn, then they have to deal with it, and then I can continue to do my 2 plays necessary to continue making it hard for them to play. So you want to play this probably after your turn 1, but it's very good and very oppressive against most of the decks in the meta, even rogue decks too. They need to summon a lot. And finally, this is probably going to change because I put this in unwittingly in my last competitive event. But I would say, if not Sphere Mode, because I realize, you don't have to normal summon, but you like to be able to in Thunder Dragons, probably put in Kaijus or Pankratops or something with removal, maybe even Mind Control, something at a 3. Put in a 3 of something that's going to deal with your opponent's already set up board, essentially. Because we've got lots of ways to, I've got lots of decks that I'm citing for still going first. Then I've got ways to go second. And so that's why, you want some sort of monster removal. This was just something I threw in. I never ended up really needing it. But that's kind of what my side deck was. I'm personally probably going to change that around. But just to give you some ideas, this is not, this is kind of meant to be like a skeleton or somewhere to start. And just showing you some of my thoughts on quirky techs, guys. So the last thing I was going to tell you about is you can make a crazy board. Let me find them. If you just open with Battery Man and Hawk. All right, so that's something if you're like not sure how to get your play started. You don't have to, this is not like your only way to make the deck function, but a really good combo is to Battery Man into a Roar. Okay, Hawk, bring out Roar, brings out another token. All right, so I'll try to find a Roar for you. Okay, and now you're set up to link these two off into your Summer. And then this is gonna, Roar's gonna special summon a Dark. Okay, and then you've got a Summer up here, and now you can start with making your full boards. And then when you link this, or not link this off, you're gonna tribute this off into a Colossus. Then you're gonna search another Thunder Dragon card, whatever you want. And you're gonna tribute this off into a Colossus, and so on. So that is what you got out of simply seeing 2 cards in hand. And there are other combinations you can do. We haven't even looked at our other 3 cards, but that's something to definitely keep in mind if you're not sure where to start with Thunder Dragons. But yeah, so that's the deck, guys. Thanks for watching. Real quick announcement. I forgot to say this. I am now an artist on Inked Gaming, and they sell really cool playmats. And if you would like to potentially get some artwork on a playmat by yours truly, be watching and listening because I'll announce when everything's ready and up on the site, guys. But that's it. So if you liked the video and you liked the deck, give the deck a like, subscribe, and see ya.